You know, if Mr. Morphew didn't have the resources, he could be wrongfully convicted. And that's a statement about our justice system.
That was Barry Morphew's former attorney after he walked out of a courthouse holding hands with his daughters back in 2022. I remember that moment. How about you? Well, now we got another big moment, don't we? Brand new development as Barry Morphew is indicted again, accused again of his wife Suzanne's murder. She vanished in 2020.
The grand jury has indicted Barry Morphew on the single count of murder in the first degree. Law enforcement, the Chaffee County community, and Colorado as a whole has never stopped fighting for justice for Suzanne.
You may recall the first-degree murder charges that were filed previously were dropped back in May of 2021. Now, Suzanne's remains were found in 2023 rather, in a shallow grave. Her autopsy showing this was a homicide, and there were animal tranquilizers in her system. Barry, her husband, has maintained his innocence. He was out on bond for quite some time. He's just been rearrested. He was rearrested in Arizona. Bond set at $3 million now. So he's going to need to be extradited to Colorado, if that hasn't already happened, to face these charges now. But will these charges stick the second time around? Let's talk about that. Let's bring back in our incredible legal eagles, Tommy Pope and Mario Gallucci. All right, gentlemen, what do you say? Mario, will this second time be successful?
So this time you have a body, this time you have an autopsy, and this time the autopsy reveals that there was BAM in her system. BAM is an animal tranquilizer. The husband has a deer farm, I believe, and he uses animal tranquilizers. So if you follow that path, 1 and 1 equals, you know, he's probably responsible for it. I'm sure there's additional evidence that we're unaware of at this point. I know there was some text messages brought up the first time that he was indicted for the murder, but now you have new evidence. You have new strong evidence. So this one's going to trial, or he's taking a plea.
Right. A great analysis, Mario. I'm so glad you brought up the BAM, the tranquilizers. I want to pick your brain more about that in a moment. Tell me, I want to get your thoughts first on just the second indictment, if you think second time around will be successful.
Well, we just spoke about a case I hope we're going to quit talking about that had a second time around. But, you know, it's always difficult. But what I was had seen on actually Court TV's site was, you know, there were some issues with the previous prosecutor. It sounded like a small jurisdiction, sounded like she was in over her head. I assume from the press conference they have a new prosecutor now. And, you know, the prosecutor's got enough work because you get cases brought in every day. So you normally don't go looking to prosecute old stuff if you can't prove it. And so I go with Mario that I believe that there must be evidence, there must be sufficient that they're comfortable in doing it. I think the biggest thing you want to do is make sure none of the taint from the previous conduct and the dismissal and all that, you know, which wouldn't be admissible, but it may be back out there in the public, and maybe he's going to start a social media campaign, but focused on the evidence, I got to believe, you know, the prosecution wouldn't be moving forward, particularly with an old case, if you didn't have the evidence, as Mario delineated, to move forward.
You're so right, Tommy. I want to turn to what Mario brought up a few moments ago. I'm so glad he did the BAM, this deer tranquilizer. And let's go back in time to this YouTube clip. This is a few years before Suzanne, I'm sorry, strike that. Barry Morphew posting this YouTube video, pleading for help. This is at the time Suzanne initially went missing. Here we go.
Oh, Suzanne, if anyone is out there that can hear this, that has you, please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back. We love you, we miss you, your girls need you.
Okay, so he obtained these prescriptions for BAM, this animal tranquilizer, while he lived in Indiana. This is before his family went to Colorado in 2018. He told investigators, according to the police working the case, that he used the drug to tranquilize deer. Just like Mario said, he was a deer farmer back in Indiana, and he said that was his explanation for the drug. Seemed innocent enough, right? Well, maybe wrong, because this brand new indictment says, quote, prescription records show that when Suzanne Morphew disappeared, only one private citizen living in that entire area of the state of Colorado had access to BAM. And who was that? Barry Morphew. Oh boy, so investigators have done some work tracing who may have had that drug, and they said their investigation found it was just him. Yikes. Mario Gallucci, what do you think about that?
It goes back to what I just said. You know, BAM is not a normal drug you would find in a household. It's not a normally prescribed drugs that a human would take. It's a very tiny portion of the population that would even need it. And he fits into that tiny portion of the population. And now you join that up with the fact that there was some marital discord going on. There were text messages indicating that that was going on. And now she disappears shortly after that. And now they find a body 3 years later, 4 years later, and it has, you know, that drug BAM within it. So there's only one way it got in there. Either she took it or he gave it to her.
Mm-hmm. Good point, Mario. You say that, right? If you're the prosecutor, Tommy, did she help herself to the deer tranquilizer? Come on now. Tommy, what do you say?
It reminds me of things. One, when he's doing the video, you know, it reminded me of Susan, you know, begging for Michael and Alex to come back the whole time, you knowing exactly where they're at. Two, the BAM and the fact that it's only, you know, within the state of Colorado, one of the few that had it. It reminds me of the early DNA days. And I had a murder case, and you know, the numbers were smaller than the percentage numbers. They'd say one, you know, in X number have this profile. And I remember the number just happened to be the same as like the population of our area at the time. And so to the jury, I told them, so it's either this man sitting here or a guy that, and you go through the list, that had the white card, that had the access to the house, that had all things, or in this case, had the BAM and had the opportunity and perhaps had the motive. And so I think it's really set up strong from what we're hearing now to have a good case. You don't have to prove he injected it. Ultimately, if you've narrowed down, it's kind of reversed beyond a reasonable doubt. You're narrowing down everything else that's out there, and it points to one conclusion, and that's the guy sitting over here in the courtroom.
Mm-hmm. Right. Excellent points, Tommy. We'll leave it there for just a moment. We're going to continue the conversation about this. Tommy, Mario, refill your coffee. After the break, we're going to talk more about this case. And guess what? We're going to talk about the victims here. We're going to talk about Suzanne Morphew and those beautiful daughters that this couple shares. What will their stand be on this? That's next. And we've got Diddy's personal assistant taking the stand in his federal sex trafficking trial. We'll hear the testimony together through the magic of AI. Welcome back to Opening Statements. We're shining the spotlight now on victim Suzanne Morphew, now that her husband Barry has been indicted again for her murder. It's been 5 years since she vanished on Mother's Day, and 2 years since her remains were discovered. Her two beautiful daughters have stood by their dad throughout all of this. This is some video around the time of that first arrest. So who should the girls believe now? Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson reports.
Where is it? Where's the bike? Oh, it's right there. Where was it? It was like just right down here in this little embankment.
8:46 p.m. Sunday, May 10th, 2020. 53-year-old Barry Morphew arrives at the scene where his wife, Suzanne Morphew's bike and helmet were found about a mile from their house by police. It was Mother's Day, but her daughters were away on a camping trip, and Barry told police that he had spent the day working on a job north of Denver in Broomfield, Colorado. Barry owned a landscaping business, and Suzanne was a stay-at-home mother who was being treated for cancer. The couple lived in Maysville, Colorado. Suzanne's disappearance quickly became a missing persons case. On May 5th, 2021, almost a year after she vanished, Suzanne's husband Barry was arrested and charged with her murder.
The investigation is still ongoing. Suzanne, her body has not been found.
According to the arrest affidavit, the Morphew's marriage was falling apart. She was having an affair and believed that he was cheating too. The week before she disappeared, she texted him that she was done with him and they had to resolve their situation civilly. But in the spring of 2022, days before his scheduled trial, prosecutors dropped Barry's charges without prejudice. The judge had thrown out the potential testimony of several key witnesses because of alleged discovery violations. And without Suzanne's body, prosecutors said they could not move forward with the trial.
Barry and his daughters are relieved, but they're sad because they too want to know where Suzanne Morphew is.
In May 2023, a year after the charges were dismissed, he and his daughters sat down with Good Morning America to discuss the possibility of future charges.
Well, I was innocent the first time they arrested me, so I'm sure it's possible. But I don't have anything to worry about. I've done nothing wrong.
More than 3 years after Suzanne Morphew went missing, investigators found her remains in a shallow grave. Police discovered her while investigating an unrelated missing persons case. The site, a desert field of sagebrush near Moffett, a town 45 miles south of Suzanne and Barry's home in Maysville, not part of the original search locations. Barry Morphew's attorney said that he and his daughters were shocked by the news of her discovery and point to the fact that there is no GPS or cell phone evidence that places Barry near Moffett the weekend Suzanne disappeared.
That was Matt Johnson reporting there. So let's talk about the victims here. Suzanne Morphew and her daughters, they're victims as well. They've lost their beautiful mother. And now I can't imagine being in this impossible position where the only parent living that they have is now the person accused of their mother's death. Barry Morphew, of course, maintaining his innocence. He's cloaked in the presumption of it. What are the daughters going to do as the case progresses through trial? Let's bring back in attorney and former prosecutor Tommy Pope, and welcome in private investigator, someone who's a military veteran and a veteran officer of the NYPD as well, Manuel Gomez. Manuel, let me begin with you here. You know, when we think about the victims, and I want to place the focus there, not so much on the investigation, although I know you have great insight to offer in that regard. You're also very compassionate when it comes to victims and justice for the truth. Your thoughts on the children, the Morphew children in all this?
First of all, my condolences out to the family, okay? And second, when it comes to the children having to relive this nightmare again, you know, it's unconscionable. But the fact of the matter is, you know, Julie, the prosecutor messed up in the last case, okay? And unfortunately, I kind of got the flavor like the Karen Reed case, where the cop was corrupt in this case. And in the former case, the prosecutor screwed up so bad that they fired them. So this case is extremely tainted. And I know it's going to be something for a jury because they're going to see what the prosecutor did the last time. And so I think the daughters right now are at a crossroad, and they're not sure if dad is really guilty, unfortunately.
Yeah, great points, because you wouldn't want to believe that if that's the case. We don't know. Only he knows the truth. Tommy Pope, dovetailing off of what Manuel just shared, thinking back to why the prosecutors had to withdraw, the judge was mad at them. I know you recall there was a discovery violation. The judge was saying, well, certain witnesses can't be introduced because these violations were so bad, it's unfair to the other side. If justice isn't carried out, how much responsibility do you think those prosecutors may bear in this?
I mean, you know, there's no excuse for discovery violations. I remember when I first got elected, my predecessor, we were just starting DNA cases, and it was difficult. You know, you had to go to the labs, and the defense would want to tour the lab, and they couldn't. Obviously, it would taint it. And so the prosecutor before me just kind of didn't do anything. So we had DNA cases that the evidence was thrown out, and we had to prosecute it with other, like fiber evidence, serology evidence. But it is concerning, but I don't think it'll be fatal. Again, from what we've heard, the last segment, they've got a package together. The new prosecutor feels strong enough about it. But as Manuel said, you're going to end up having that taint. You're going to have to deal with it somehow. I mean, hopefully, if it was a discovery violation, if you timely provide it now, I don't know that the judge would necessarily prohibit those witnesses this time. And so, hopefully it's a semi-clean slate. It's kind of like cleaning a chalkboard. It's never totally clean, but hopefully it's open and they can start. As far as the daughters, again, not always talk about the Susan Smith case, but David Smith stood right by Susan until the day she was arrested. And so, and he believed her and supported her even when they questioned her. And I see the kind of similarities with these daughters. They're sitting there, what are they going to do? Cast their dad aside? And what if he isn't guilty? And so I think they're doing what they have to do. But I mean, they've lost their mother and they may lose their father, but that would be justice if he in fact took her life.
Excellent points, Tommy. Manuel, let me turn to you now, please. Some of the facts we know about the dynamic between Barry Morphew and Suzanne Morphew, the victim. So Barry was the last person to see her alive, told police she was going on a bike ride, told authorities their marriage was, quote, the best marriage. But we know that Suzanne was allegedly having an affair. She told her friends that she thought that Barry might have stepped out on the marriage too, and that she conveyed to her friends that she told him she wanted a divorce, that was going to be it for their marriage. This is right before she goes missing. As an investigator, Manuel, your thoughts on what might have happened to Suzanne?
The fact of everything you just said gives the reason to have the intent to make her disappear. And also, this guy was well thought out. Okay, he made sure that his phone showed no record, no location, had it off, highly questionable. I mean, come on. He's running a landscaping business and your phone is off for the duration that it was? I don't think so. I don't believe him. And second, the fact that they came up with the rifle and that there's the combination of tranquilizers that he was involved with, that stuff, which goes back to proving, what one of the causes was for her murder. So you know what? I think, like I said again, this is going to be a difficult case, but I think the prosecutors got a really strong shot this time if they play ball correctly, all right, and make sure there's no Brady violations or anything else. I think they're going to hang this guy out.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Manuel. I think this BAM information is going to be a game changer. The fact that they traced him to be the only person in that region of the state with it, and then also the fact that it's in her system. What a unique way to die. So we'll leave it there for now, and of course report on when we learn that he's back in Colorado and what comes next in his process, pleading not guilty. And of course, we're thinking of the victims here on this show.